Okay, we're gonna start. Hi guys, thank you all for coming. Yeah, I honestly have. So this presentation in general is about strategy on the first day of a build season, in which is in my opinion kickoff. Um, so how do I explain this? Let me talk about myself first a bit. Okay, so great. So I am a member of SWATPos Team 694 from New York City. I'm currently the president of engineering for the team. I've been on the team for 4 years. I've also been part of the strategy department, and taken I've had a huge involvement with the strategy team in deciding pick lists, analyzing the game from start to finish, and something that I've learned over the years is that the robot is only half of the game. Not a team or the success of a team can't really be done without having a good, strong strategy behind it. So, over the past few years, in 2016 was the first time our team ever won our division at champs, and then this past year we also won the New York City regional as the first seed. So again, in my opinion, that was largely in due to our strategy. Uh, Again, a little bit about myself. I'm, like I said, the president of engineering, which is the first in command of our engineering department. I was a 2018 First Dean's List finalist, and this is now my 8th year in First, including FLL and FTC. Yeah, so why am I here specifically? I met a team in China, and yeah, they brought me here. So I'm now talking about strategy. So, what is kickoff, and why is it so important? Next slide. Kickoff is, in essence, in reality, the first day of build season. It is the day the new FRC competition begins. Is the day where the new game is revealed, but it's also in a way the most important day of your whole season and can decide the fate of your whole competition season at that very moment. If you guys, um, yeah. So, what you decide on that first day can either make or break your season, depending on whether you make the right choices based on strategy or you overlook something very small but critical in the rules, which could end up making your whole robot unable to actually compete. So, kickoff itself is probably one of my favorite events. It's really stressful, but also it's a time where everyone's supposed to come together and have fun. So I want everyone to remember that no matter what I say in this presentation, that the main thing about kickoff is that everyone comes together and is excited about the coming season. Um, Also, something I want to note that because of the new rule about no stop build day anymore, I think that kickoff is even more important now because this is when you decide what exactly you want to do for the rest of the season, however long that may be for you guys. So, next, I'm going to be talking about how our team specifically handles the first day of the build season. We or 694 is a very very large team. We have around 150 people, 150 students on paper, and around 20 to 30 mentors. So we are a very large team, and during kickoff, almost all those members show up. So we have to figure out a way to not only divide all of us and make sure all of our voices are heard, but make sure that we are organized and able to actually listen to everything that is said rather than only listening to those in power. So, the first thing we do the morning of kickoff is watch the game animation together. I strongly encourage all teams to do that. It is a great way to bond at the beginning of the season. It is also just a good informative session watching everything together because some people notice things others may not. Right after watching the kickoff, the game reveal together, our team goes through the whole game manual, start to finish, cover to cover, every word one at a time. We make sure that if we have any questions, we write them down immediately and then designate one person to ask those questions on the Q&A. The Q&A is a really really helpful tool because that's essentially the only way that we as team teams can ever get any confirmation from the FRC headquarters. First headquarters. Yeah. So after going through the whole game manual, we then break up into groups, followed by we break up into groups based on previously previously decided group leaders, and then we go break off into lunch, during which the group leaders meet together and then split up the remaining people that showed up based on attendance and things like that. So tend to make sure. Sorry. We tend to make sure that, given our size, that around 10 to 12 people are in each group, including mentors. But again, this is subjective to how many people are in your team. Don't feel like this is supposed to show how many groups or members you're supposed to have. Please adapt to how you may need to. So, in these small groups, we have around 2 hours to discuss, and we discuss over multiple topics. What SWATpos does is that we break down the competition into multiple sections or levels, if you want to call it, and then talk about the strategies or potential strategies in winning each of those categories. So for us, the lowest category is always qualification matches. These are like regional qualification matches that we would play no matter what, and we want to figure out how we would win this. So whether that be focusing on the RP, focusing on getting that auton, whatever it may be, this is a strategy that we're trying to figure out for the qualification matches. After that, being that we're from New York City, we try to focus on how to win our home regional. We say New York City regional specifically because we almost always get into that regional. This is actually the first year that we're having trouble with that, but that's a different story. But also, New York City regional is typically a weaker regional, so we think of it as a very different baseline than trying to win other regionals. So that's something for you guys to consider. If you, I not trying to put stereotypes, but if stereotypically event is seen to perform at a lower level than other events, then it's probably a good idea to come up with a different strategy, because one strategy does not always work for every other event. So after trying to figure out a strategy for New York City regional, we try to figure out a strategy for our other regionals that we may attend. Last year we attended 2 other regionals besides New York City, so we had a very different strategy for each regional. And this year we're hoping to do the same, but again, assuming the game, we're probably going to adapt our strategy as much as possible to give us the advantage during those times. After deciding on all the regionals and qualification matches during those regionals, we think of qualification matches at champs. This is different from regular qualification matches due to the level at champs being at a much higher pace, and then this is being the teams that have already gone through qualification matches and regionals, district championships, and everything else. So they already know how to play the game, and they already have figured out their own strategy, and we need to figure out how to beat them. The final two are just stepping stones from that: how to win our division and how to win Einstein. We always try to figure out at the end the key strategy that the top teams on Einstein will be playing, and we try to figure out how we could best also use those strategies or implement those strategies. Again, please note that we are a very large team. Again, you guys, for teams that are smaller in size, say even like 10, 20, or 30 people, it's very feasible to do something like this. Just you would have less groups or smaller groups. But a key point is that you should always, if possible, break into smaller groups so people don't feel as intimidated talking to a larger group all at once. And then once everyone has their own ideas collected and formulated, and then maybe giving designating someone as a spokesperson for that group, then you come together as the whole team and then discuss everything. Which brings me to my next thing, big group discussion. So what StylePost does is that we, after having our small group discussions, we come together and talk about every single group leader talks about what was discussed in their group. And during that time, we start nitpicking at each other's strategies and trying to figure out what would be the best for us. So again, we're not trying to harass each other or anything like that. We're just trying to figure out what's the best for everyone possible, which includes the best for our team. Um, we also this is also the time where we briefly start talking about designs, but what we try to emphasize as much as possible is that we do not want to think about design oriented strategies. We just want to focus on the task itself or the concept and then design around that concept. So something else that we do just because we have the time, we so just to give you um, estimate, we go from around 8 a.m. in the morning on kickoff day to around 5, 6 p.m. And then we meet the next day. So that's our typical schedule for kickoff. But while we're doing the big group discussions, we're also try to tape out the field so we have a visual um, to associate with the strategies. And then sometimes it really helps being able to see what we're actually doing on the field because then that really changes our views of the strategies. So if you have the ability and time to do that, I strongly recommend you do so. So we spend around another 2 hours or so talking as a group, and then trying to figure out things that we may or may not have thought of as a small group. But then as it gets later and later, we finally call it a day until we meet the next day. Yeah. So the, during that Sunday after kickoff, that's the day when we decide or we finalize in a way the strategies that we want to focus on for the season. So we talk. It's not. This isn't when we like figure out our final priority list, what we're going to do, the whole match, everything like that. But it's just that these are concepts that we want to prove, and we're going to now make designs out of those. Sorry, we make designs for those concepts and to solve those tasks, things like that. Um, During that same day, we begin talking about possible designs and prototypes, and then assign people to those prototypes, and ultimately start designing and prototyping our mechanisms. Something that is really important, in my opinion, for kickoff during kickoff is that you assign tasks to people. That really gets people involved and gets people excited, and then you're just it makes things a lot smoother and more organized, and you end up being less stressed as a leader or as a member later on. So, what to get out of kickoff itself? Like I said before, um, you should look for potential winning strategies of whether that be a district event, a regional, district championships, champs, Einstein, whatever it may be. Try to figure out a winning strategy that will work not only for you, but also for the top teams in the world. But also, something you cannot forget is to be realistic about your own capabilities as a team and as an individual. So, while thinking about what the best strategy is, you should also think about what the best strategy is for you and how you could adapt yourselves to the best strategy possible. Because honestly, honestly speaking, you're not going to be able to if you're not capable of pulling off, say, 40 kPa auton, talking about 2017, then you shouldn't be trying to go for it. Unless you really want to, in which case, please go ahead. Sorry. Okay. Um, Also, really important is that you have a very thorough understanding of the rules. There are many teams that show up to regionals and just competitions in general from district events as well, where teams do not know the rules properly. I've seen countless teams have not being able to compete in their first day of qualification matches because their robot is illegal or because their what they thought was their game-winning mechanism was actually something that directly violated rule every single match and got them a red card. So again, it's very crucial that you understand the rules because otherwise, whatever you may decide may end up backfiring in your face later on. Again, the Q&A, if you're unsure about anything, either other people are also unsure about it and will ask on the Q&A, or you could ask yourself. Everyone is going to appreciate your honesty later on. Also, the main thing I think that comes out of kickoff is a plan for the next week of build season. So kickoff is always the first day. Being the first day, this is when ideas start flowing, things start coming to life, and you always need to have a plan for what's going to happen in the future. As quick as possible, I recommend you come up with a plan, and just try to delegate things as much as possible. Yeah. So again, Stypos does kick off in a very specific way that is, again, possible, really only possible due to our size. But I feel it's adaptable for any size team, and I hope that you're able to use those um, ideas. Something that I feel is also helpful, and we do on our team all the time, is go over past games and try do something called a mock kickoff. So what we do during those times is we analyze the game as with fresh eyes from a past year, and then think of the game-winning strategies for that game, and then prepare ourselves for the upcoming season. So what we're going to do is analyze a game from the past, specifically 2013. So, wait, okay, Emily, I need to, I need video. Yeah, or yours. Yeah. Okay, but yeah. So again, what we call this a mock kickoff is run usually by our strategy department, sub department, my bad, and this is usually done so that our new members get a feel for kickoff and build season and things like that before the actual the actual build season starts, and so that they don't feel uninvolved or something like that. Uh, yeah. Okay. So, while we wait for that, do you guys have any questions about anything? Yeah. Mhm. So what the for us specifically, we try to make it as similar to our actual kickoff as possible. So we are actually going to be running a mock kickoff sometime in beginning of December in preparation for the 2019 kickoff. We are going to be we usually use this time as practice for our potential group leaders. So split up everyone into groups based on how many group leaders we have present on that day, and then we just go analyze the game, give about like 1 hour or so for small group discussions, and then come back together and talk as a big group. And then we afterwards we talk. After doing all the discussion, we reflect on how we did as a whole on the mock kickoff. So our typical meetings last from around 4 o'clock to 6. Usually, you always finish our mock kickoffs within that time. Yeah, we just have to keep very close time on that. But during actual kickoff, we go and allow discussion to go as long as needed. Any other questions? Yeah. Mm. So there are certain things that, like specifically the drivetrain, that we do plan slightly ahead. But like so, for example, our team decides on having the drivetrain ideally catted and finished, built and everything by the end of week 2 or so, which is when the rest of our mechanisms are still being prototyped. This is because we want our drivers to get as much practice as possible with the new drivetrain. But the time frame also depends on the game itself, because if we want to try out, say, a new type of drivetrain based on the game given that year, we will allow for more time. So we have a rough schedule made for the, I, I guess, the completion of mechanism, things like that, before the kickoff, but those are always very flexible. Any other questions? Yeah. Mm. A, someone who likes reading and has a clear voice. But yeah, honestly, it's a long process. It's definitely tedious at times, and definitely there are times where people complained. I myself complained when I was first on the team, but it's really a crucial and helpful thing that I think is no matter what uh, the cost may be, I think is extremely beneficial. So just have a lot of water, have someone who is likes to read, and someone who can speak clearly. But yeah, yeah. So the one person is we do this in our school auditorium actually. So one person is speaking at the podium, and we have that one person speaking through the mic and all that. And then whenever someone specifically wants to comment on something that they found interesting in the manual, we just shout it out loud, and then we go over it again um, together. So say we found something interesting about the I don't know the fouls this year. So we would go back, read over the fouls together, and then discuss it a bit, and then move on. If there are certain things that seem very similar to last year, like say I don't know the size limits of the robots, then we will skim through it a bit. But generally things like foul points, game objectives, things like that, we spend a lot of time on. Yeah. Huh. So I guess um, for Stipols, what we try, our main goal, no matter what, is always to be trying to win for championships, um, which we've only come close to once, and that was a long shot anyway. But that's our main goal, and that's what we worked for from day one. Um, with that in mind, we always try think about what the best teams are doing and how we can accomplish those tasks. So, taking 2018 for example, we were stuck in between choosing whether we wanted to specialize in the switch or the scale, and then we decided that the top teams at the championship on Einstein will be going for the scale no matter what, and we wanted to be like that one of those teams. So we ended up with our 2018 robot, which was very heavily scale dominant. Any other questions? Oh, that was quick. Wait, what was the, have any of you been around for First Stronghold? Okay, how about 2013?
Which one was that? Can you
The
tell me?
Frisbees?
I wasn't around for it, but what was it?
The Frisbees. I believe Ariel
I
was.
remember hearing about running these and their frisbees,
Yeah.
and it was awesome.
Great.
But I wasn't there.
Only good one?
Okay. This one load. This is taking a while.
I know, it's a slow laptop.
Okay. Oh well.
Oh well.
So yeah. So we're going to be analyzing the 2013 game with the time remaining. Uh, 2013, um, I want to say is was a very fun game in my opinion to watch. Um, basically, you pick up frisbees and you throw it, or you shoot them. And honestly, I love that game so much. Even though I did not know about FRC or first at that time, I love looking at matches from done. And I can't find the game animation. Pity. No, I got it. 2013 was called Ultimate Ascent. Like I said, the main objective was to pick up frisbees and to shoot them into goals. Um, okay, let's just hold it this way. Is volume improving?
Located at three different heights. Each alliance wall also has feeder stations located at the ends of the wall. Two large pyramids occupy the middle of the field, about a third of the way from the alliance walls. Each pyramid has three rungs leading up to the top, which can be climbed by the robots. At the summit of the pyramid is an additional scoring goal. Ultimate Ascent is played with standard flying discs of three different colors. The objective is to score as many discs as possible in the goals at the far end of the field. The harder the goal is to hit, the more points it's worth. Robots can track the reflective vision targets around each goal, allowing them to target goals from anywhere on the field. The match begins with each robot in contact with the pyramid at the far end of the field. Robots can be preloaded with up to three discs each. A 15-second autonomous period starts the match. During the autonomous period, robots can score discs using pre-programmed instructions. Every end goal scored during the autonomous period scores double points as a bonus. At the end of this period, human drivers step forward to take the controls. As the teleoperated period starts, teams command their robots to score as quickly as possible. Discs can be scored by throwing or placing them into the goal. Robots can hold up to four discs at one time. After gathering discs, they can try to score from anywhere on the field. Human players enter discs onto the field by passing them through slots in the feeder stations. Robots in the loading zone are protected from interference by their opponents while they receive discs. But robots not touching this safe zone have to deal with defending opponent robots. Near the end of the match, human players can throw discs onto the field and try to score. At the same time, robots drive to their pyramids and start to climb for bonus points. The higher they climb, the more points they will receive. Robots can climb up the sides or the corners of the pyramid, but they have to remain there as the game ends to collect their bonuses. Good luck, and we'll see you at the competition.
Okay. So yeah. So that was a 2013 game animation. What do you guys think? Any thoughts?
Yeah, excellent. I've never seen the actual animation for it, but I have seen a few of the games that was played before I came along with it, and so I have maybe a little bit more insight than other people who haven't seen any of the actual competitions,
Yeah.
but that was pretty cool.
Yeah. So I think something that should be noteworthy is that the let's see, the climbing bonus at the end on Einstein there was only I think one team that actually climbed a pyramid, and they did not win Einstein.
Because it's not worth a lot to climb, is it?
Hmm.
So one has to prioritize with strategy for sure.
Yeah. So now you know that one of the main things of the game, the end game as it is, was not actually important in this game. So what do you think the strategy was for this game? Maybe we should someone else. Sure. Right, but why? It's worth more. But okay. Hmm. Right. Yeah. So a lot of teams did actually prioritize that shooting. One of the teams that actually stood out to me most was 1678, who ranked first in the division, and they got rejected by, I think, four teams, five teams, I forget how many, but they got rejected by a lot of teams that year. And that was the first year that they ranked that high in their division. But they then went on to choose the 10th ranked team and then went on to win the division. Yeah. Yep. So the reason why 1678 was ended up being able to win that their division that was stacked, but they had teams like 1717, who was absolutely amazing back then, 2056. Who else was there? I forget from the top of my head, but there were a lot of good teams there. So, but they chose 148, and then they went on to win the division. 148 had this ability to score from all the way across the field at the human player station. So they just loaded out the human player station and then scored from all the way across the field. 1678 was just regular shooting bot that picked up frisbees and then scored. So this strategy of being able to shoot or being solely focusing on shooting was what was made them able to win their division. So this is I with how much Emily? How much time do we have left? Okay, but this is one thing that I really want to highlight. They this team 1678 Citrus Circuits chose to be considered one of the best shooters. They to do this they improved their acquire their intake, and then they ranked first in their division. And then even after being declined by some of the best teams in the world, they still went on to win their division. They used their strategy that they've decided and kept to since the beginning of the season, and then chose a team that also the almost the same thing as them, only in a different way. So the moral of this, I strongly encourage you guys to think about on kickoff day what you can and cannot do, and what other teams will do, and then think about how you can complement them. Thank you.